What's going on, everybody? We're gonna get into a quick conversation. I'm gonna try to keep this one pretty brief, but I just went live just for whatever reason. We're gonna talk about something that's confusing to a lot of people, but it shouldn't be. Racial categories. Yeah. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. We're gonna get into a little bit of something here. Alright, so I'm gonna get right into this, so we'll have it playing low. Alright, so what I want to kind of get into, everybody, let me put myself in here. Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Alright, what's up, everybody? This is Super Mike. And, yeah, basically, let me make myself bigger. Hold on a second. Alright, so basically today we're going to deal with black. We're dealing with racial categories. Now, we need to understand that racial categories are not talking about actual color. We're not talking about actual color. You're talking about groups that the white supremacists have put themselves in, and they have taken upon themselves to create these categories so that they could mitigate and defend what is theirs, just as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing told us. They realized that any color which is added to themselves, they are genetically inferior. I mean, and when I say inferior, that's really their language. They're not inferior, but they are genetically recessive. And a genetic recessive has a big problem, a biological problem, right? And so their biological problem is playing out in the world as outwardly, they're doing like Sun Tzu said. Outwardly, they pretending like, oh, we're strong, we're the dominant person. Y'all all animals. Y'all got all of this nasty DNA. Y'all all disgusting. All y'all other groups are weak. We're the Aryan race, and we're the master race, and we're the best. And because what they want to do is they want this. They want total dominance. See, and that's America. And this was in the Final Call newspaper, by the way, this particular picture. And this is their head, United States of America. This is why they have all the nuclear bombs and everything. And this is a snake, a serpent, a snake. When you can't really pin a snake down. If you put the truth on the snake, he's going to slide this way. And then you catch him over there, he's going to slide that way. That's a snake. That's why he's referred to as a snake. He speaks with a forked tongue. He'll tell you one thing, tell the other person another thing. And then when you confront each other, they'll come up with perception management, and they'll change that. So this is what we're dealing with today, just a little bit. So especially like in the English language. In English, you got a situation where we're dealing with people. They use the visible light spectrum, which is scientific. It's dealing with, let's get this here. Visible light. Wrong. I'm messing up. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Wrong one. There it is. All right, so visible light. There it is. We're dealing with visible light. We're dealing with, I might as well just get rid of this. I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. All right, we're dealing with visible light. This is what we see, colors, right? This is color. This is a scientific thing. It's not really confusing. It's electromagnetic scale, right? And we're dealing with frequency and wavelength. And this is a part of a larger scale of electromagnetic, but within this particular spectrum, we can see from violet, which is purple to us, and we got blue, and we got all these various names that we give these particular wavelengths: yellow, orange, red, right? And then we get brown up in here, and then you kind of go away. On this one, we can look. We don't see white and black in that particular picture, but here we realize that white, the condition of white that we in English have labeled white, is when that particular object reflects all of the light off of it and projects that off into the world. So all of the different colors at the same time shine upon a particular object, and those particular colors at the same time are reflected away. Our eyes call that condition white. It is the total colors. So white is the total reflecting of the colors. And we don't see black in here, do we? Because black is really not a color. And really white is not a color. Okay? But the colors are all in here. This is the science part. It's not confusing. You can see black up in here though. And I don't know if y'all can see that. Look between the red, the green, and the blue. Those little spaces, black, right? That is the condition of when light is absorbed, right? And does not reflect back. So white light is that 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 object is reflecting and repelling the sun. Black is a condition, or darkness is a condition, when that object is absorbing all the light, right? It's not reflecting back to your eyes. So now that we got that out of that's pretty straightforward. Easy to understand. You got various colors that comes up out of here, period, right? But when we're talking about racial categories, right? Let's deal with this. So we're talking about racial categories. That's not what we're talking about. Get this in your head. Racial categories are not dealing with a particular skin tone. Now, from the white supremacist perspective, they have demonized the opposite of themselves, right? So their skin tends to reflect all sunlight. So they appear white, what we call white, right? And when they see another human being, the darker your skin, okay, it absorbs more of that electromagnetic wavelength from the sun, which our bodies naturally do. Then they call you black, and that's a good thing from our perspective. But from their perspective, and since we speak their language, it is a negative. So now that we have woken up, We don't want to allow them to ascribe negativity to a natural condition that we are in, which is the blessed condition of dark human people. You know, human actually means colored man. Hue means colored, right? Color, right? So they want to describe our condition as a negative. It is a negative from their perspective because, as Dr. Francis Quest Wellstein told us, when they get mixed up with us, that right there destroys them. It mixes up their blood. Their DNA is recessive, and they become something else within that generation really quick, right? So, as a protection mechanism for themselves, they want to keep us away from them, and they want to keep their people who don't have that information. They want to keep their people in a state of hatred and hostility towards us as a form of separation. At the same time, since they're not logical beings, they would love to dominate our stuff. They want to steal all our resources. And let's give a little perspective on this. I'll give a little perspective on, let me see here. Yeah, because this is their history. Barbarianism. This is how they get what they want. This particular group of folks, the way they get what they want is, you know, it's not necessarily with too much negotiation. They're basically, this is gorilla pimp. They're gonna rape it. They're gonna take it from Africa. They're gonna take it from wherever they can. And anytime you present resistance, they use the biggest weapon that they can, and then they'll go ahead and destroy you. So let's look at the history of the terminology as black. So black people, the reason why that's a decent term for us, black, and keep in mind, we don't want to come from black within the context of the history of the Aryan people, where they call themselves Nordic, because black for them is a negative, but for us is a positive, right? We have a different history concerning the word black. Keep in mind, we didn't speak English, right, in our different groups. But we know that scientifically the condition of darkness or black does exist. So what did we call that condition? What did we call the condition of whiteness? So we had positive terminology for this, and we named ourselves. There's some nations that name themselves black in their language, and Kemet, black soil, right? And Sudan, if you go into the Arabic, Saud, you'll find when you go into the etymology, you guys do that research on your own, it is hued or dark. And, Olmec, all of these type of things. And this is just a meme I got to quickly explain that particular point. But you guys research that yourself. You'll see that that's pretty much accurate. It's pretty much accurate. Now, the concept of black that we have today is not actual hue, and it's not positive because we're speaking the language of an enemy. Keep in mind, we are a conquered group, and so we are waking up to that. So now let's go to the next point here. I want to tell y'all, we don't need to be one first. Okay, let's deal with this one drop rule. Now, first of all, let's deal with this one drop rule. This is Sean King. His family is black. His wife is black. His children are completely black. He is what we call, what the people and white supremacists have called a quadroon, meaning I think his mother was mulatto. They call him mulatto, which means the mother is, or the one parent is white and the other parent is black. And then just like Meghan Markle, Sean King was what they call a quadroon, which is just further division. He's black and I'll tell you why he's black. Because black, when we're talking about racial categories, is not a color. And this is the reason why the one drop rule had to be instituted by the white supremacists, because that actually works closer to our perspective. And the reason why is because of this. It does inhibit us on some occasions, so there is some problems with it. So I'm not saying there's no problems with it, but it, it serves to destroy them faster than it's going to hurt us. It serves to destroy them faster than it's going to hurt us, and we'll deal with the problems with it. Because what you have when sometimes you have all these mulatto classes and you give them a little bit of it's just like if you did your children. If you start favoring one child over the other, then those two children are going to start to fight, even though um, it really doesn't matter. And keep in mind, the only reason why we can't ignore racial categories, and it's not about hate. You don't have to hate anybody. It's really not. But you can't ignore racial categories because there's people out here enforcing these things. So when you deal with, let's look at this here. We're dealing with a racial category. Here's somebody. This is a census. This is the United States Census, 2010. What's the first thing they ask you? This is the 9th question. What is the person's race? Mark a X. One or more boxes. If you mark one or more boxes, they've already got the categories for you. But this is all they care about. White, black, and that's it, really. White and black. All this other stuff is just for your convenience, to make you feel better. And, so you got the white is number 1. They put that at the top. And they've divided us, so they'll call us a black, African American, or a Negro. And that helps you to fight. You're all the same thing. You're all the same damn thing. African American or Negro. And keep in mind, I'm not saying that these terms completely accurately described who we are as a human, as a group of a nation, as a people. But what I'm saying is that we cannot ignore these things, because guess what? You need these resources. Right now, you're in a situation where they're making the rules because, you were defeated. And the only way you can get yourselves back together is if you acknowledge what happened. Stop trying to pretend like you can just ignore a racial category because you don't like it. You lose then. Let's say you put what this dude put, American. It's still not going to change anything. They can just they're probably going to label him as black. Because the white people are proud to be white. They'll just click it. And then even other groups, especially, they're allowed to click white, right? So, and what this is they want to allocate the resources. They're concerned about their numbers, white. This is the main reason why census is important. Let's look at a different census. This is a census from 100 years ago, 1910, 110 years ago. And I don't know if y'all can really see that. So it want to know where they're from. The name, the relation, sex, color, and race. Color of race. That's what they want to know. The United States Federal Census of 100 years ago. Color and race. Yep. That's what they want to know. Color and race. So that's there. You can't ignore that, because this is a racist society, right? This is their nation. And let's verify that a little further. We're going to verify that just a little further here. And everybody put the thumbs up, hit the thumbs up. We're going to go into this. This is not for you to hate people, but this is to understand realism. We can't pretend, we got people on the internet, and it's mainly black people doing this because we don't understand, and they do a pretty good job at hiding their details and their history from us. And it's not really that they hide it, they just put it in a book and then they encourage us not to read. But they definitely want to read all of our stuff. Here's a particular guy, and it's many more, but I'm just gonna actually, you know what? I'm gonna talk about this real quick. For example, look at this: Latino and Hispanic. It says Latino includes Brazil, does not include Spain. Hispanic includes Spain, but does not include Brazil. So what they're doing, if you don't know what you're looking at, but look at all these countries in it: Latin, Hispanic, and everybody under here is able to consider themselves Latino, Hispanic, and Hispanics. And what these countries are: Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Haiti, Honduras. So you're black people, but you can be Latino or Hispanic. Nicaragua. There's a lot of these black people and Native American folks. These are countries. But these particular Latino does not include Spain, and Hispanic does not include Latino. But Latino is Portuguese, and that's a European country, and Hispanic is Spain. And so those two European countries respect each other, but they don't respect these conquered nations, right? So we got people running around here calling themselves these are not racist, okay, but this is the classification of the European. And why we can't just simply ignore it is because we can ignore it, but we have to take the power and enforce. We have to enforce a new standard. But that takes power because they're still out here creating these labels. They changed the definition of white, and they changed the definition of, that's the reason why we have black, African American, Negro. We come up with all these different things, and if we come up with something they don't like, they actually don't want us to call ourselves black, use the black identity, because they understand that that's a unifying identity. It's not about because race is not about science either. It's not genetic. Racial categories are not genetically based. They have genetic aspects to them, but they're not genetic, because genetic is a series of nucleotides that is indicative to particular ethnic groups. And then some, ethnologists or some, DNA categorizer, they just label this and they name it, Native American, or they name this particular series of nucleotides Somalian, yada, yada, whatever. But they don't have, so even, that's not even really real. It's real, but the only reason why it's real is because we accept it. But the point is, we could do the same to them if we wanted to. Look at that. That's what you want to consider white? Do you want to mix up with this? Really? This is what people are doing. This is not the goal here. These are not goals. Okay, and this is a very serious subject. Now, let me get right into finishing this off. This dude here, this guy name is Lothrop Stoddard. And let me talk about actually really what they're scared of. Okay. This particular guy, let me just say here, Lothrop Stoddard, he wrote this book, The Rising Tide of Colors. And there's other people. This guy here is named Ernest Seville Cox, which is The Color Problem. He wrote this book. Ernest Severe Cox, The Color Problem. And I'll show y'all a couple excerpts of these particular books. Lothrop started The Rising Tide of Color. And this is him. Let me get him. This is the mindset of the white supremacist. And white supremacist is a real thing because they are making it real. When man-made things are real, man-made guns, man-made nuclear bombs, okay? And these are not really man, but they're mankind. And I'll get into that in a minute real quick. But, you know, man-made buildings, man-made houses, refrigerators, spaceships, you know, telescopes, all that. So you don't dismiss anything just because you say something is man-made. You still got to deal with it. The club in this man's hand is man-made. But it's still, that you can't ignore it. You can't ignore something just because it's man-made. All right. So let's get into some of this. So we're dealing with this here. The Rising Tide of Color. Lothrop Stoddard. Let's see what they did here. Put the thumbs up, guys. Put the thumbs up. Let me get to the spot, trying to get this concept out to y'all as quick as possible. This dude here. Hold on a second if I can. All right, so this is Forgotten Books. Look at that. The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy by Lothrop Stoddard, PhD, Harvard. See, this is why white supremacy is a thing. This is the reason why white supremacy is a thing. And I'm not, it's 353 pages. I'm not going to read the whole damn thing. But you can get this. It's on PDF. It's not right. It's a lot of lies in it. It's stupid. It's stuff that we know that's not true. It's not factually true. That's not the point. The point is that they're pushing it. They will lie right in your face. They don't care about facts. They want to win. See? This is about, let's look at what this is about. This is what I highlighted. Mr. Stoddard takes up the white man's world and its potential enemies as they are today. So this is what we're dealing with. The potential enemies of white folks. This is what they're scared of. This is what they're worried about. And if they're worried about you, they're going to try to kill you. Let's look at some of the contents of what he wants to deal with. Can you ignore it? Oh, I'll just ignore it. Okay, that's fine. Let them do what they want to do. That's just like the one team. If you play chess is black and white. If you team black and you just ignore what team white is doing, you can ignore it. Oh, he's not trying to make me. Oh, he's not trying to check me. And you end up in checkmate. You lose. So the point is, if you want to walk away from the game, you still lose. Because we're on this planet. This is about resources. You know, wise people do not ignore an enemy, right? So if you think you can just ignore it, you're someone that is not really going to really make it happen, because that's the only reason you're going to keep their dynamic going. The only way you can really clean up this so-called racial category madness that they got going on is that we on Team Black dominate them. And this is the reason why biracial doesn't really make sense. Because since race is not a category, that's basically like saying I'm a Republican Democrat, or these are opposing teams, right? So you can't really be on both sides of the fence. It's like if the Detroit Pistons is playing the Atlanta Falcons, even let's say you like both teams, if somebody tell you to pick a side for that particular game, you got to pick a side. You can't be on both sides. You can walk away, but you're not going to win nothing in the situation. So if you're playing on the Detroit Pistons, you're not a Piston. You're not a Falcon. You see what I'm saying? Even if you're from Atlanta, if you're playing on the Pistons team or you're playing on the Falcons team and you're from Detroit, you're not a Piston. You're a Falcon. You see? So biracial, that's the reason why the one drop rule makes it works. That's the reason why it's not even one drop really for us. It's like if your grandparents. So, you know, because basically if you can pass as white, you're pretty much, you know, you're going to operate as a white person. But the world of color, yellow man's land, brown man's land, black man's land, red man's land. You see, these are the racial categories he came up with. And it's not that he came up with these categories, but the point is, this is what they are enforcing. This man's book is what the white supremacists use, and these white supremacists are in your government. They're in your police forces. They're in your, fire departments. They're running the companies. They're Microsoft. They're Google. Okay, they're eugenicists. Okay, they're Facebook. This is their mindset. The white flood. Okay, the deluge dikes. See, to them, it's like we're a flood, and because we don't even have to understand we're at war, because we have a natural biological advantage. So just us living our normal lives is a threat to them. It's a threat to them. And they were trying to clean that up. They were trying to destroy us. So that's why they love to genocide people. All right. Categories of white world supremacy. This is not about literal colors. Okay, can we deal with that there? It's not about literal colors. Here's another one. Let's look at the other dude. This is Ernest Severe Cox's book. His book called White America. Hold on a second here. White America, the American Racial Problem. See, to us, their problem. And Lothrop Stoddard wrote his stuff in like 1920. This is right after the World War One. Okay, this is during the Red Summer, where black people was getting lynched left and right. This is the environment this man wrote this stuff in. All right. So they were stealing black people's land. This is the time when Black Wall Street, 2 years later, well, I think a year later, they bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma, because the black people, to them, this is the context in which these books are written. Okay. And here's another one. This guy, he wrote his in like 1937. Well, excuse me, it was published in revised edition was published in 1937. Ernest Cox had this book, I guess, 1920s, but before the next World War, which is Hitler and all of them, this guy he put his stuff out. Ernest Severe Cox was there. Let's see, this particular guy. And we can't ignore these things. These are these people's this is the white supremacist manifesto. This is how they transfer these ideas in their intelligentsia, right? And these are the leaders of their communities. And so it gets transferred through their policy, because these are not lightweight people. These people control policy. Okay, these people, they have these little clubs that they join. And when we ignore real danger, we start doing really stupid stuff, you know. And here's just a dumb example. It's not such thing as race. Race is just an imagination. The Klan, all this shit, we ignore this stuff, and then somebody chops your head off. What's wrong with us? Come on. I'm sorry. I know we have white friends, and I know, I have family members in my family that are white, and it's not about hating anybody. That's the problem. But we're not going to ignore history just because we know some people who don't think like this. There's a lot of white people who do not think like this. So it's not about hating people, but we can't ignore what the hell is going on here. Okay. And this is another reason why when white people mix with us, they actually sometimes are treated simply as a black person, because it's not about their actual color. Because what's going to end up happening is they became the other team. This is a team sport. It's not about your skin tone. And this is the reason why, in some black folks, this is the reason why we got stuff like Clarence Thomas. I should have had his picture up. Yeah, this is the reason why we got some black folks that, you know, they think they can just ignore stuff, and then they'll go around doing something stupid in their darkest night. But they've been accepted into team white supremacy, and so they white, but they're still not treated completely as white, because they're always looked at as suspect. This nut, he hates black, and he knows. See, this is who they put in. They will look at your patterns. I'm gonna do another one on is there a coon gene, which, we'll get into that. Is there a genetic signature to coonism? But anyway, in coon, we'll get into that whole thing late on that one. But I'm gonna finish this out. Let's look at this. Everybody put the thumbs up. What's up? And actually, let me turn it to the desktop. So the one thing I wanted to highlight on this guy, Ernest Severe Cox, they're talking about the history with the black people, how they get overran. They have the science. Now, this is what I want to deal with: the science of ethnology, if properly restricted, will not deal with mankind, which is them. They refer to themselves as mankind because they know that they are not the original man. We the original man. And who told us that? See, now that we got somebody who knows the game, who is the original man? The Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. See, these are lessons. We got to understand that. Since we know since somebody has come and taught us this detail, now we can deal with them because we know what level they're on. But some of us still not on it. We need to be building the bridges between ourselves, right? That's why we need to understand this stuff, because there's a lot of tricks and games. White supremacy is the most deceptive situation that's going out there. So the science of ethnology, when properly restricted, will not deal with mankind as such, but with the various races. Its province is not to determine the origin of man and his development, but to trace the origin and development of the several races. Ethnology may properly be concerned with the results arising from the contact of races. It is this phase of that science which we deal with in this volume. So basically, when we're talking about ethnograms and ethnology, this is them. What is ethnography? So when you're talking about ethnic group, if you ever notice, ethnic groups, they don't even consider white people ethnic groups. They're just the white man. But what ethnic group are you? With your ethnicity, right? your ethnicity. You know, these aren't races, these are countries, these are nations. And so they call them ethnic groups. Yeah, they call them ethnic groups. But what ethnic group is a white person? Are you Irish? And they don't highlight their differences. Are you Irish? Are you English? Are you British? Are you Italian? Are you Greek? What are you? Oh no, we're white. We need to learn this game. We need to know this game. Don't get confused. It's not about the skin tone. It's not. But, it's about a mindset. This is the white supremacist mindset. And the only way you can really determine that mindset is you got to see how that person behaves and talk to them. A lot of us operate in the white supremacist mindset. We don't even know. This is their goal right here. And we're sometimes when we're doing stuff to develop our condition, guess what they do? What they did to Marcus Garvey. Then white supremacists will march your ass right the hell out this country. Because when they have the power, they're going to use the power. Let's look at this last thing and then we're done. This is a big thing. Uh, the Moors. So, the Moors of Spain, let's go to that actually. Down here. We need to study the Moors because the 750 years of black history in Spain where we were holding the white supremacists at bay, but we started race mixing with them. This is a depicting of the last ruler of Spain, which his name is Boabdil or Hassan. He was a mulatto, he was mixed, and he had empathy for Isabel and Ferdinand, which is the Spanish rulers at that time, the white ones. And he ended up, through a long story, they end up putting siege on Grenada, which was the last stronghold of the Moors. Throughout time, they started inching this, kind of breaking down the Moorish rule. But because this was race mixing and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. But so they started kind of becoming more empathetic with them. And, after a while, that once they put that siege on Moorish Spain, he had to capitulate to them. They enslaved like 15,000 right away. This is 1492, right when Columbus sent Columbus over here with Moors. So yeah, right away we were on all sides of that. So 3.5 million uh, black Moors from Portugal and Spain. They had to get out of there before those those inquisitions started. Once those inquisitions started, they start. If you didn't say you was a Christian, they're gonna burn you alive at the stake. They was murdering, and that's what they did. So the Jews and the Muslims, they got the hell out of there. They went down to Fez. They went down to Africa. They ran to Africa, North Africa, the Berbers and all of those people. So we gotta deal with some real history because you don't know what the hell you talking about or thinking if you don't know the history. You don't understand why people have, you know, these type of conversations. You don't know what side is right and what side is wrong because you haven't did no research. Yeah. So, the Moors, they were black as ink. We got accounts from that period of time. We know that the Moors were black people. We got they was, the person who took over Spain, which was his name was Tariq the Moor. We got artwork and pictures of him from that period of time. You know, so we have this. This is the records. The Moors of Spain were absolutely black people, and throughout the whole time. But they did start to kind of lighten up and get mixed because they started having these harems They wanted to, they loved them white women, and they began to have they did enslave, the Moors did enslave a lot of white people, and mainly the women, because the white dudes wasn't worth nothing, because they couldn't work. It wasn't about working. They had them sex slaves though. That's the problem. And that's where we fail at, and we were wrong for that. And so they did have a right to whoop us up, but what they did, you know, they're gonna have to pay for that, and how they did us here in America. But yeah, the Moors of Spain. If you don't know about the Moors in Spain, then you really messing yourself and your history up, because you don't even understand how. You don't understand. All they teach you is Greece, Rome, England, or Britain, then America. There's a lot of gaps in between that. Black folks was all throughout that. We were all throughout that. They were fighting us with Rome. We were dealing with the Greece in Egypt with all of that. We were dealing with Rome, with Carthage. So we got to know our history. We got to know our history. If we don't know our history, then we're going to keep getting deceived and tricked and just, lose every generation. And the more, all we have to do is know it and teach the children. Because what happens is, once you do that, then you start making sense, and then you start understanding, and then it's hard to deceive you. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I want y'all to start. Actually, you know what? I want to talk a little bit more about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You have to deal with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's not you got to think about it. You're dealing with a white supremacist system, so they're going to make sure that you hate them. They're going to make sure that you hate them. But this man here, he gave us some wisdom, and he was patient with us, because he knew there's no way we can get what he learned and what he was teaching us in one generation. It's too much. It's too much. And so you need to get his books. Like I said, get his books, and get all that wisdom. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad books is the foundation of clarity. And I think that's pretty much it. So everybody, press that thumbs up button for me. And this is my quick live. Black is not a color. It's the essence of color. And really, the racial categories are not colors. Don't get confused. When you hear people say, "Oh, I'm not a crayon book." Come on, man. That's stupid. Ain't nobody crayons. This is real. This is a century, 1,000-year war, really. That's what this is. And we're being managed. You need to read, the first one is Message to the Black Man. If you just read that one book, you'll be like ahead of the game. A lot of this stuff will not confuse you. The Bible is a white supremacist tool to confuse your brain. But there's information in there. But you gotta do what you gotta do to understand it. You can't be scared. You can't be scared to learn. So that's it, everybody. Hope you give me some feedback on these little lives when y'all see them. Go ahead, give me some feedback. Peace.